I can hear the hum, and as soon as I hear that, when it gets to that hum, there's just a smile that comes on my face. That I'm completely completely content and completely happy. And I know that, for many of those people in that room, they'll go home a little bit happier than they came, hopefully.
Hi, everybody. This is Dirty Linen, and you're with Dani Valent. We are talking food as always. When you're busy and always thinking about the next urgent matter, it can be hard to stop to celebrate the milestones. But I love it when I see a restaurant post on Instagram or put it on the menu that they've turned 1 or 5 or 20. I've actually just written about Locke Deli in Richmond, which is 50 this year. It's great to take stock, find time to be proud, consider the legacy and what you want to take forward. For Jason Jones, there are a couple of milestones to celebrate. He's turning 50 and his Melbourne restaurant Entrecote is turning 10. There's a beautiful book to go with it. That decade of Entrecote has spanned 2 locations with a pandemic shudder in the middle. But I remember when the current location opened in Greville Street in 2021, we were all pretty bruised and the optimism expressed in it was utterly moving. The romance, the detail, the pianist at a grand piano, the sense that fun and gathering and champagne and indulgence were okay, human, crucial. It was a huge investment in connection. Congratulations on the milestone, Jason, and welcome to Dirty Linen.
Wonderful to be here, Dani. Thanks for having me, and thank you.
Tell me how you're feeling about these big anniversaries.
Well, it's pretty exciting. I think with anyone, like you said, I think in introduction, turning 1 in hospitality is a milestone these days because it's an industry that's has its ups and downs. So turning 10 for me is very exciting here at Entrecote because it was only ever supposed to be a 12-month pop-up, as we all know. So it was the pop-up that really never popped down, and here we are celebrating our 10th birthday, which is really exciting. And of course, then my 50th on this earth, which is also pretty exciting because I've made it this long as well. So that's saying something. So the 2 together, I think, go well, and a book to sort of help it celebrate along.
Yeah, the book is beautiful. It's, it comes in its own box. It's definitely more than a cookbook. It's full of stories and not only from yourself, but also from people who've been important through the years. And I love the way it takes us all the way back to, your childhood and where, at an early age, you realised that hospitality was going to be a really central for you. Tell us about your childhood, the piano, where you played it and the whole milieu.
So I'll just start where the book starts off at 11. So I started at 11 playing. I actually went out to practice on this couple that moved to Gippsland, Maffra, a little town where I grew up, 4,000 people. And this young couple, he was Dutch and she was a very posh Aussie. And they bought this gorgeous homestead called Powers Court. And in the homestead, we had this extraordinary old ballroom, which they restored and opened this restaurant, which was chef-hatted for about 10 years, I think, from 87 or 88 till 98, I think. So I went out to practice on this grand piano because I'd never played a grand piano before. And as soon as I started to play, Michelle, who was only 30 at the time, said, well, would you like to play every Friday, Saturday night for our guests? And I said, well, it'd be great. So it was sort of a bit of a win-win because I was doing what I loved and actually being paid for it. And I think I was paid $7.50 an hour to play, but my tips surpassed that hourly rate by a lot. So it was pretty amazing as a kid.
And I mean, what about this restaurant environment? Did it instantly transfix you, or was it more about tinkling the ivories?
Yeah, well, it went from wanting to play the piano out there every Friday, Saturday to really just falling in love with an industry that I knew nothing really about. Obviously, you don't know much about a restaurant before you're 11 if you haven't grown up in one. And it was a whole new world, like, this world of linen and silver and Wedgwood china and, it was just, and foods that I'd never seen. And, Powers Court all those years back in 87 was sort of one of those restaurants where, it was supposed in the same realm as the Lake House, sort of where it was it was, using local pheasant, local berries, local, Glen Maggie chicken, smoked deal from Stratford. It was really about, and the book goes on to say, the amount of people we'd have coming in through the back door with just local produce, which came out of nowhere. So growing up to sort of understand that produce that was around our area but we didn't really know was something pretty wild when you're 11-year-old and you're, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and taking it all in. So yeah, it was good.
You mentioned that you weren't a sporty kid. You perhaps weren't set on the same pathway as a lot of other country kids. You weren't going to, I don't know, take over the family butcher shop or be the captain of the footy team or, go to the city to study medicine or whatever it might be. How did you find your way into hospitality as a career?
So I suppose what happened is really I started doing Friday, Saturday nights. Then I really loved the kitchen. I thought I wanted to be a chef because Martin, who owned Powers Court, was sort of a mentor and I looked up to him so much. Then I started doing, like after I'd finished my shift at 9 o'clock because I played 7 till 9, I'd start going in the kitchen and working with the pastry chefs, finishing off desserts and that sort of thing. And so I thought the kitchen was for me. So then I did start my chef's apprenticeship then. So I was only about 13, I suppose, when I did that. And by the time I was 17, I'd fully qualified as a chef. And then in that time, I also realized that my actual real love was being with people. And I was just so lucky that I was able to go from kitchen to front of house to piano and sort of learn all aspects at such a young age. Of course, I thought I knew everything. I mean, I was 16 or 17 years old. And of course I didn't. But it really was an extraordinary world to grow up in because, I didn't sort of have a real teenage childhood because I'd go straight from school, straight to Powers Court and work and be in the kitchens or on the front of house. And so didn't sort of, never went to footy with my mates and, they'd be drinking what are those orange, not cruisers, the vodka orange.
Like UDLs or whatever.
UDLs, they'd be drinking UDLs and I'd be, up myself wondering where a wooded Chardonnay was. But I mean, I wasn't really up myself, but yeah, I sort of did grow up pretty quickly during that period. And I sort of realized that I didn't think there was going to be anything ever that I'd be doing other than hospitality, obviously. So
what was your first, what was your first foray?
So at 17, I opened my first restaurant when I was 17 called No Ego at All, Jason's Restaurant and Tea Rooms. And that was in my little town in my grandparents' nursery and they matched me dollar for dollar. So I think I'd saved $35,000 by the time I was 17 and they matched me $35,000. I think we spent $70,000 opening that. And I had that for about 3 years and it was extraordinarily successful. Little restaurant. It was BYO, I think, and we did a 3-course dinner. Open 7 days for lunch, and then we did a 3-course dinner for $35 on Friday, Saturday nights. I think we did $25 lunch on Sundays, and it had grand piano in there. And it was a whirlwind of growing up very quickly and learning business, and me thinking I knew everything, and my grandfather telling me that I didn't know everything. So it was a volatile but extraordinary learning experience to open a business at 17, and I think I sold it at 20. Yeah, so it was pretty amazing. Really.
What did you do next?
Well, I think then I came to Melbourne. That's right. I came to Melbourne and that was the first time I ever worked for anyone, really. It's the first and last time I've ever worked for anyone because I went to the Old England Hotel in Heidelberg as bistro manager, actually. So that was doing like 1,000 covers a day and I was 20 years old. And Tom Payne, who owned the hotel, was a customer down at my restaurant in Mathborough and he just wanted me up in Melbourne. So he shifted me up to Melbourne. I lasted about 3 months and then I went back to Powers Court after all those years, after having my own restaurant and managed Powers Court for the next 3 years. So it was a complete flip to starting there as 11. I don't even mention that in the book, but I actually went back to Powers Court and was there for several years as manager. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, honestly, there's a lot in the book, but there's obviously a lot that's not in the book. It's a very storied life that you've led. There's definitely a thread of Paris and the French things. And, Paris seemed to be a place that was part of your mythology long before you actually visited it. Can you talk about the place of Paris in your life?
Well, it's funny because I was I went on to open several restaurants down in Gippsland on and off throughout Gippsland over the years, but I never really travelled. I don't think I ever really travelled until I was 30, and that's where I think in the book it's Paris woke me up. Because at 30, I was sick with cancer a couple of times, and I thought, now I really should I really should travel because, and now's the time. So after I got better, I took myself off to Paris. I think I was away for about 2.5 months, and I went to Paris. And yeah, well, what can I say? It's a pretty easy city to fall in love with. So, I mean, I had no money. So I stayed in a tiny little apartment by myself in Le Marais. And then I probably worked out, probably good time to come out as well in Le Marais, and and say, yeah, I'm here and having fun. So that was amazing eye opener, and I think I just fell in love with just getting lost in Paris for that period of time. I did a few trips out in Europe and had a few friends visit and cousins visit, and but certainly that first time and the first night in Paris I spent was at Entrecote in that original Entrecote in Paris there, and that's where I sort of thought, gosh, this is an amazing idea.
Well, for people who don't know of that, tell us about Entrecote in Paris. Like, what is the concept?
So Entrecote in Paris it sounds commercial and it sounds like a real tourist trap, and it is to a degree. There's no doubt about it. But it really is a one steak dish. A guy in '56 took it over from his father, but he wasn't a restaurateur, and it was an Italian restaurant originally, but his father had, and then he just thought, well, we do know how to cook steak, so we just do one dish and do it very well. So they did this green sauce, and that's still to this day. They only have there's just one dish on the menu, the steak frites, and if you're a vegetarian, you get a plate of cheese, which is pretty good. But it's and it's slapdash, it's rude, it's everything French. But the great thing is, you go there and there's still a line an hour long to get in there, and they've got seriously now many sort of entrecotes throughout Paris, and there's two different owners, but that's another story for another time. But still, you'll see all the locals there, which is to me says something about the product. It's one of those grey, black and white things. People either love entrecote in Paris or hate it. There's no in between. But the lovers love it, and it is really still full of locals that still go for this one steak frites, with this green sauce.
So, I mean, there's so many elements of France that you could express in Australia, but you chose, something quite narrow, really, like this very simple concept. Like, why did that appeal to you?
Well, I've owned close on 30 cafes and restaurants in my since I've been doing them, and I just saw it when I'd always had this idea in my mind. I wanted to do it as a small pop up somewhere. So when obviously that beautiful spot on the corner in Domain Road that my friends Pete and Di had popped up as an opportunity after a couple of false starts that we might be able to take that over and do it as a pop up for 1 year, because Pete was turning it back into his residence. It became really stuck in my head that that's what I was going to do there. Give it 1 year, see if it worked. And if it worked, we might move it somewhere else. But of course, we were there nearly 7 years over that period because it really did work, And of course, we opened exactly as the one in Paris did. We opened with nothing on the menu except steak frites. And you started with a green salad with walnuts and radish and a little piquant sort of dressing. And once you ate that, you then got your steak frites. That was a little bit different to Paris, because trying to tell men here in Melbourne that they had their salad and had to be finished before their steak frites came out, that was pretty much changed in the first month. We didn't continue at that. It then came out with the steak, right? And they could, And then we had a few entrees just because we could. And then we ended up being really a French brasserie towards the end with our signature dish as still as the steak frites. So we were going through it nearly just on a ton of porterhouse at that time a week. So it was pretty mental, because that was the only thing on the menu. So that was for about the first 6 months. So 6 months we did do just steak frites on the menu.
Wow. Yeah. And so for people who weren't there, like eating their part of that 1 ton of steak a week, it was in a very iconic site for Melbourne where Lynch's restaurant was for decades. A very, old school fine dining, no babies.
Cigars after 10.
Right. Yeah. It was. So you took on it had had a couple of other iterations after that, and then you took it on and really, I guess, gave it such energy for its last hurrah as a restaurant. I remember during COVID, obviously there was so many hard things about that period, but there was also so much creativity and innovation. And, I really think back to many of the things that you did. There were picnics in the park, you know, possibly on the edge of legality because the rules kept changing, and no one had really thought of putting picnic tables in a park. And I remember having the steak with the secret green herb sauce at home with a, you know, playlist and heating it up on my stove, feeling, I guess, alone but connected at the same time. You really, threw yourself into invention and reinvention during that period, didn't you?
It was actually, now I look back on it with fondness, which is a pretty extraordinary thing to say, considering fondness to a degree. But I just think it was a time in my life where I've never had to. I think anyone that got through it has never had to sort of think outside the box so much to make it something that we could all get through and try and be as positive as we can. I remember when obviously COVID first hit, you know, I was in tears, and you know, to everyone but I knew, saying we're losing everything, everything, you know, closes down. But then once it hit that, you know, this wasn't going to go away, we just had to learn. You know, we never imagined what we'd be doing. I mean, we were doing, I think, 1,000 Entrecote at home a week during the sort of a peak of, and especially when Providore kicked in with Shane. Look, it was actually, you know, there was something about getting all those boxes out and the picnics out and doing an amazing day, but then going home and having a curfew at 8 o'clock and no traffic outside, and ordering D'Estasio for dinner at home, and they delivered it in their white jacket, you know. So there's something, I have some sort of memories of maybe COVID wasn't so bad, but it was bad. And I'm glad we're not going to do it again, or I hope we're not going to do it again.
Well, it was also during that period that you decided to move, and you found the premises in Greville Street, Paran. You know, also, I guess, not so much an iconic site there, but definitely a strip that had meant a lot to Melbourne in various ways over the years, but had taken a bit of a slide. You know, I remember the first time I went in there, I was so struck by the design, just the incredible optimism in just pulling that. Just pulling all of that together, which I know is something that you collaborated with your partner, Brahman Pereira, the designer, in large part. Can you tell me about that sort of placemaking that you do? You know, how do you turn a bunch of cherished objects into a place with such atmosphere?
Look, I think there's no question that I'm probably the biggest hoarder in the world. I have about 4 40-foot containers full of stuff that I've collected from Leonard Joel's and everywhere around the world. And every time we travel, we come back with a suitcase full of things, or a container following us with a shipment full of Bacante and things like that. So we did have a lot of stuff, because I always knew we would be moving at some stage, because every year I'd have the handshake with Peter and say, oh God, if I kicked you out, my friends would kill me, so have another year. And that went on for 7 years. But then that time during COVID, when we really had no money, and had to go to the bank and say, well, can we have a couple of million to do this restaurant in Greville Street? And luckily the bank believed in it, and they gave it to us. And so I suppose things like, it just all comes together. I don't know how, but as soon as I walked in, I mean, I knew Greville Street when it was on fire with the old days of the Greville Bar and Candy Bar, and the Continental down the road, and it was an amazing strip. And I always knew it had that, like, a 15-20 year bit of a hiatus where there was not much here, and it lost its way a bit. But I always sort of knew that if we could anchor Entrecote in the middle, and then the strip would get bigger and better, and there was always, I'm not going to say that the strip was dead when we got here. It was quiet, but there was the Great Angus and Bond just down the road and a few other things. But certainly since we've come here, and I knew it when it was fog, which fog was what it was. The always joke there was you came with your wife and left with a divorce lawyer, I think, when you came to fog. And so it was pretty notorious, and then it had been a Japanese restaurant a couple of times. So as soon as I walked in here, after we were sort of given notice at to Main Road, the minute we walked in, Breb and I there wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a question at all. It was just, this is it. This is the place. This is our forever home. So for Entrecote, so we just had to make it work and try and scab around and find some money and look through our containers and bring it back to have ideas of what old Domain Road was, because part of a charm of Domain Road terrace, small rooms as you walk sort of through. And we've sort of created this space to be like walking to, I suppose, like a chateau or a maison where you walk through and there's different areas, different rooms, and you can shut it down so it's a bit more intimate or open it up so it's a bigger space. So, and I think we've done that well. And it really is, we built it to look like it's been here already 20 years. And I think that's one thing we did well is you walk in here and from day one and it felt like it had already been here 10 or 20 years. So I think that's one thing we did well.
I mean, that's the canvas, and then it's the people that bring it to life. Tell us about, the people who've been important to you. I mean, actually, don't tell us about all of them because we'll be here for hours, if not weeks. But tell us about the importance of putting the right team around you.
Well, I suppose in hospitality, it's a transient sort of world. I mean, COVID was probably one of the biggest, realizing, but when COVID hit and we couldn't keep all our internationals. So it really brought us back to who we had. And, most of my team that are with me, my management team have been with me over 12 years now. So my main sort of 4 or 5 people have definitely been over 11 years. And, they're my sort of, my inner circle that keep, me motivated to keep going as well. And I think that's the most important thing. And we just don't have a high staff retention here because our culture has been built over so many years, but we've been so blessed to have extraordinary people work with us and also the people we work with as well. So, and I think that the respect is mutual, and that's why we've been so lucky to keep on to the great team we have. Yeah, I think really think.
I guess one of the secrets of longevity in hospitality and probably many industries is knowing what you're not good at and what, it's best to leave to other people. There's a pretty raw story about the Domain Road Entrecote when you were told that perhaps you weren't the right person to be on the restaurant floor. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I suppose I'm not a big believer. It's probably not the right thing to say, but the customer's not always right. So if I think I'm completely right, which sometimes maybe I'm not as right either, I'm the first to tell. So I think I lasted when we first opened Domain Road about a month on the floor before Ruth Giffney, who's been with me for nearly 13 years, told me that I wasn't allowed to do any more shifts on the floor. I was sacked in my own restaurant. I still get out there a little bit, but mainly just to say hello to people now. So,
so what is your role, Jason? Like what are you busy doing in the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my role is, what is my role? I think it says something on my email. I think oh gosh, that's ridiculous. Creative director. Yeah, creative director. So really, I am definitely the ideas person. I'm the one that sort of keeps all I suppose just this, you know what? I'm very lucky because I do all the fun things. That's the truth. If it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And my team will attest for that. I do all the things that I want to do in the business, all the fun things, all the things that keep the energy alive. It's that stuff that keeps the youthfulness I think, in the business, and that can only come from me. I think, but when it comes to the accounting and all that, oh my God, I hate all that stuff and the money. So I've got great people around me that know that stuff better than me, and I've had to learn it because remember, I'm a chef that has fallen into restaurateur. And I think that's part of a problem with a lot of restaurants is if a restaurant's run by someone that is just creative, which is pretty much me, if they don't have the people around them to support them in culture, in systems, in finance, that's where it all falls apart very quickly. And I've just been blessed to have those people around me my whole life, really. So yeah, that's why I'm still here, still doing it.
What do you find fun, Jason?
I find fun. Okay. So the creative parts, I suppose, of a restaurant is, well, I love to keep everything fresh. So we're always, like, we're redoing the brasserie, for example, the week after next, actually, and just doing a revamp so it feels fresh. Not changing the bones because I think the bones are still beautiful. But I also love all the soirees that we do, the opera nights and all that sort of thing. That's the stuff that I really love doing. And it's also it's about bringing it back to, I think one of the chapters talks about how when I first went to Mietta's and saw an opera performance before each course, all those years back when I was about 14. And it comes back to that theatre of what a restaurant is. I grew up with candles, white linen, grand pianos, that sort of thing. So, and I think, I've seen so many iterations of what restaurants have been, when we've gone back to minimalist, and, small servings on plates. I've been through all that, and then I'm loving seeing this resurgence of the 80s almost coming back, with everything's a little bit OTT. We've got away from minimalism, and I just think there's much more of a sense of generosity in hospitality when there's that sort of environment, and for people to escape. I mean, you can't. I don't think you can escape into a minimalist interior. Sure, we've done it and we've tried, and this will be a fad as well. But I think the key with something like Entrecote is that we don't want our place or our maison to ever be a fad. We still want it to be the same in another 10 years. And that's how long I intend to be here to celebrate the 20 years as well. To see, when you see places like, my favorite restaurants in Melbourne, D'Estasio and Francois, and I still eat at Francois weekly. And it's amazing because when I walk in, everyone sort of hides himself because I'm seeing them in Francois eating and not Entrecote. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. It's my favorite restaurant in Melbourne. But to see, Jean-Paul turning 40, and that's just, and not really changed and just kept a consistent, it's the ideal, I think, way a restaurant should be, is the Francois method. Yeah. And that's, I look up to that and think, gosh, that's extraordinary. And hopefully if I can even do half that time, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a great restaurant to acknowledge for its longevity. 40 years with remarkable consistency on Toorak Road, South Yarra, not too far from where you are. And certainly, I suppose, a restaurant that makes itself a part of people's lives consistently is certainly doing a lot of things right. Do you watch trends and fads, Jason?
It's funny. I can almost see a restaurant the minute it opens. I can almost bet on how long it's going to last. I think it's when you've been in the industry as long. I've been 39 years since I started in hospitality, and you can sort of pick it. You can sort of pick this is a fad that will last a year or 2 years, and I do, but I sort of watch more overseas from locally. And I mind my own business here, and because my concentration is keeping us motivated, keeping us front of mind, and celebrating the small wins we have here at Entrecote. So I don't sort of look locally as much. I can look at competitors and what they're doing, of course, but I do look overseas. I still travel a fair bit, as much as we can. So looking at different things over there, and looking at longevity over there, because that's what I'm looking at more at the moment. I'm looking at how places in Europe and France and Italy and London, of course, and New York, like Belfast, is one of my other favourite places. And Keith McNally's a great restaurateur, interesting author, but great restaurateur. And so, yeah, I suppose I do look at fads, but more broadly than locally, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, well, back to Lycon Deli, which is top of mind for me because I'm writing about it. They've turned 50 years. It's a Greek deli. It's sort of over the years become a bit more broader Euro than just Greek. And they've 8 years ago they got the premises next door and made it a sit-down cafe. I was chatting to the owner John Pandaleon yesterday, and he was talking about their chicken souvlaki, which is they've always done, but with an eye on the current craze for hot chicken shops. Like sort of next wave hot chicken shops there, instead of doing chicken skewers, just like fillets of chicken and putting that in the suva, they're doing whole roast chicken and portioning that up and putting that in the suva. And I just thought that was a really nice example of, staying true to yourself, but keeping an eye on things and taking what is useful and works for you and sort of tapping in and creating a point of interest. How does that strike you?
I like on Deli, I know very well because I've been going there, and 50 years. You talk 50 years ago. Well, 50 years ago, what was that? 1976. That's 1976. It's my 50th birthday this year. But in 1976, we were buying olive oil at chemists. We've got to remember that. So, it was bought to rub on your skin, not to be cooking with. So, you look at Lycon Deli and the evolution that they've come through, and it's just extraordinary. And I suppose we're probably not. We just all we do really here, I'm just trying to think about how we work around as a work in progress, but we just try to refine, constantly refine. It's not we try to find new ways. It's which I suppose is refining, but not new things, but refining what we do and trying to always improve on, because the menu's sort of set to a degree. We only change so much the menu because there's some dishes we can't take off the menu. But so yeah, I suppose we more look at searching within rather than how can we bring newer things in. But I suppose exactly what Like on Deli have done. It's another version. Yep.
Yeah, nice. Jason, you mentioned the cancer that you've worked through a couple of times over the years. Like, how would you say that's changed you?
Well, cancer is probably made me. It didn't change my personality much, but it made me realize that I really should get out there and do things and not hold back until I was older, so I had more money, to I wanted to do things like I wanted to do. So I just went out and started exploring a lot more. We're talking now, that must have been 20 years ago, I suppose, cancer. But then recently having a heart attack and having a triple bypass, that was the one that sort of made me think, yeah, okay, time to look after myself because I want to be here for the next 10 years of Entrecote and the next 30 years of myself. So that was a big one. That was a big eye-opener, that one, especially when you didn't see it coming, which I suppose you don't see with cancer as well. But that was the big one for me. So that happened during COVID as well. So it was the move, and then we opened, and then the heart attack. So that was a bit of a eye-opener to start looking after and thinking about me. And that's when I sort of stepped back really in the restaurant as so much and more working from behind the scenes. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been, yeah, like so scary and shocking. Was it an sort of, did you instantly know what you wanted to do with that crisis, or was it a sort of a dawning?
I think when you face sort of mortality like that, because it was pretty close for a while, I think the thing with having something like that having so briefly, so quickly, is that I think, and they always say there's a cardiac blues after having a heart attack, and that the mental health for me, well, I really struggled with for about 4 months after that. So I really had to really build myself back up to get strong enough to in physically and mentally to come back and be back working. And I suppose I questioned then, is it time to sell up and maybe move the country and live a quiet life? And everyone thinks you're a party boy because you own restaurants, and but really we don't. We don't drink at home. We're actually quite sensible. Well, of course, I'll have a blowout every now and again. That's absolutely what I do and what we do. But we sort of do live a relatively quiet life, and when we've just looked internally, and it's probably even a little bit quieter now since then. So yeah, it's definitely an eye opener to get back on track and be thankful for being here, really. And that I definitely am. I definitely am that.
Well, we are too. Jason, there's very few 50-year-olds that can say they've been 39 years in hospitality. You must have learned a lot over that time. For people who are newbies or younger in the industry, what kind of advice or like philosophies would you say have been helpful for you?
It's interesting because once upon a time I said don't do it because it's an industry that's a little bit broken at the moment. The margins are a little bit skew with, and until people realize how much it really does cost. And I don't like this public sort of thinking that restaurants aren't allowed to make money. I mean, they should. They're a business. We have to be. We create getaways and sort of fantasy worlds for people for a couple of hours. So I don't see why we shouldn't be allowed to make 5% at the end. But then, there's always this, I could do this at home for $50 or $20 cheaper or $100 cheaper. And I think, that's got to be, the public have got to stop thinking like that, because restaurants are out here. We don't open restaurants for people to have bad times. No, I don't open a restaurant for anyone to come and have a bad time. I open a restaurant to hopefully 90% of the people to walk away and had a terrific time. And I think what I see these days with young people is they work in a restaurant that's doing quite well, gets all the publicity, gets all the media, gets the awards, and then all of a sudden they want to go and open their own as well. I see people just too young getting into it to just stay back, learn more, take from everyone around you. Don't jump into your own place, straight away, because it's not. You may be a great chef, but there's just so much more. You're a social. There's so much more to. When I opened Jason's restaurant when I was 17, really, we just had to have a chef, and I was on the floor, and we opened, and it was, it went very well. But these days you have to, social media, and you have to have mental health programs and a great culture within the workplace, and all these things. Like for 11 years, we have a no drinking policy. We don't allow knockoff drinks at our venues, and haven't for 11 years. And all these things that make, over the years, you learn, that creates a stronger backbone, so you can have longevity in the industry, because it's an industry that's not known for longevity. But it is wonderful seeing all these places in Melbourne. I see them, Stalactites and all these other places, but not in the media every week, but just wonderful to see them still going and still going strong. And even Charcoal Hill on the Grill, and all these places that I love. And it's to see them still going, and it's been many years of learning and watching and understanding how the industry works for them to be there now. And I think, the young ones, it's an extraordinary industry, and it's been the world to me. And I wouldn't have changed a single thing. I've loved every part of being in this industry. So I think for young ones, still get in it. It's great. And I think there's so much more respect in the industry now to how it was, 20 years ago, with tempers and all this sort of thing, and what was accepted as the norm those days, where it's not accepted as the norm anymore. So, and I think that's a great thing.
Why do you think restaurants matter?
I keep bringing it back to escapism. I think they're part of they're part of a world makeup, but Melbourne in particular. But I think it's a matter of, some restaurants you go just to eat, and some restaurants you go to escape. And we all have those sort of places that we do. Restaurants matter because they're part of our community. They're just driven. That's the way we. How can I say it? They matter because I think, number one, they're one of the biggest employers of hospitality. Is one of the biggest employers of people in Australia. So I think, if we didn't have restaurants, we'd have a fair unemployment situation. But I think they matter. I'd have to really. They matter because I think they matter because people like restaurateurs really do put their whole world into a little box. It might be 30 square meters, it might be 300 square meters, but really the people who put their lives and what goes on behind the scene in a restaurant is out of this world, because it's not just about the 2 hours that people or 3 hours that people come and dine with you. There's just so much behind the scene that goes on, and it's all those little things that come together that make things matter, but make things work. And I think restaurants are very, very important in our society. But of course, I'm going to say that.
Well, I agree with you. If you walk into Entrecote and you perhaps walk through the different spaces, like, tell me what you're seeing that makes you feel like it's humming, it's all going well, people are having the time that you want them to have. Like, paint the picture for us.
Yeah, okay. So it's funny. I walked in here last week, actually, and we've just got a new chef, Henry Salt, who started with us. And I was walking in for the first night of his menu, and I walked in at around 7:30 for dinner with Brem, my partner, and we walked in. The place was full. The lights were all at the right, lights were all at the right dimness. The piano player was playing. There was birthday cakes already going out and celebrations. It was a Tuesday night. And to me, that hum, there's just a hum. It's like a decibel that sits, and I can hear it now, even in empty conservatoire here, sitting here. I can hear the hum. And as soon as I hear that, when it gets to that hum, there's just a smile that comes on my face that I'm completely completely content and completely happy. And I know that, for many of those people in that room, they'll go home a little bit happier than they came, hopefully.
You make me think of, the orchestra tuning up and then it finally resolves and you have this one note.
Exactly it. Great analogy. Yep. They're all hitting C major beautifully. A middle C, I should say. Yeah.
And when it's like that, what's the feeling for you? What's the satisfaction?
It is euphoric. Yeah, it is. It's good. It's great. It's really a beautiful thing, and it's why we do what we do. It really is. It really is why we do what we do.
Love it. Well, enjoy the celebrations. Thanks for giving us something to celebrate with you, and thanks for sharing some stories with us today.
Right, and the book comes out in April, so buy it.
Have a look at the book. It's a tome. It's
pre-order now.
And it's got the hitherto secret herb butter sauce. You got to get all the way to the end of the book to find it, but it's there.
Got to read all my stories first.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Dani. A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is Dirty Linen. I'm Dani Valent. We bring you untold stories from the food world. Real, raw, unafraid, hopeful. We're driven by a belief that food provides endless opportunities for learning, connecting, and creating the world we want to live in. Delicious, open-hearted, meaningful. If you know a story that needs telling, get in touch. Write to dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thank you for listening.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.